A diver's hand closed around a lump of corroded bronze in a shipwreck 2,000 years old. That single moment in 1900, and one recovered the most sophisticated object from the ancient world, a device known as the Antikythera Mechanism. By the end of this journey, you will understand how a single artifact can shatter our entire view of history, revealing a forgotten age of genius. We will decode its intricate bronze gears, explore the advanced science they represent, and confront a haunting mystery about the knowledge that vanished with its creators. How much of our past is still waiting, silent, to be found? The Sea of Antikythera was not a welcoming place for the divers from Simi. They were not archaeologists, but sponge divers, men who made their living by holding their breath and descending into the deep. It was the spring of 1901, and after a violent storm had forced them to seek shelter near the island's rocky coast, their captain sent a man down to scout for sponges in the calmer waters. What that diver saw instead, as his eyes adjusted to the dim blue light, was the haunting silhouette of a human form. A bronze arm, outstretched from the sediment, reached toward him from a depth of nearly 150 feet. Exhaustion and danger were their constant companions on these dives, with the ever-present risk of what divers called the rapture of the deep, a nitrogen narcosis that could cloud judgment and prove fatal. Yet here, amidst that peril, they had found something extraordinary. What followed was a chaotic and grueling salvage operation, one of the first major underwater recoveries in history. Over several months, with the help of the Greek Navy, the divers hauled up a breathtaking collection of ancient wealth. Marble and bronze statues of philosophers, athletes, and gods emerged from the darkness. Priceless glassware, jewelry, and hundreds of coins lay scattered across the seafloor, all from a Roman cargo ship that had sunk around 60 years before the Common Era. The operation was not gentle. Statues were accidentally broken as they were hauled to the surface. One diver lost his life to decompression sickness, and 2 others were permanently paralyzed, the human cost of recovering these treasures. Amidst this flurry of activity, focused on the obvious masterpieces, a small, unassuming lump of corroded bronze and wood was also brought up. It was roughly the size of a large dictionary, and it was catalogued simply as a piece of unknown mechanism, set aside with other fragmented metal objects. It did not look like art. It looked like a forgotten piece of machinery, utterly out of place. All these artifacts were sent to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, where they were cleaned, studied, and put on display. The magnificent statues took center stage, as one would expect. For decades, that curious lump of bronze and its fragmented companions sat in storage, a minor puzzle for the museum's catalogers. They were noted but not understood. To the classical archaeologists of the early 20th century, experts in sculpture and pottery, this object made no sense. The ancient Greeks were philosophers and artists, not mechanical engineers. The visible gears and inscribed text were anomalies, perhaps misidentified as a navigational astrolabe from a much later period. So the world's most sophisticated ancient artifact waited, its secret locked inside layers of calcified sea deposit and corrosion, a silent witness to a forgotten chapter of history that no one yet knew was missing. The stage was now set, not by a careful excavation, but by a chance discovery born of hardship and accident, for a mystery that would take half a century to even begin to unravel. For nearly 50 years, the corroded bronze fragments rested in their museum drawers, a quiet enigma. The first person to truly question their assumed identity was the archaeologist Valerio Stais. In 1902, while examining the pieces, he noticed something others had overlooked, a finely divided scale and a trace of Greek text. Stiles proposed a radical idea that this was not a medieval instrument but an ancient Greek astronomical calculator. His suggestion was met with profound skepticism. The academic consensus of the time held a firm and clear view of ancient technological capability. The Greeks were celebrated for their philosophy, their mathematics, their sublime art and architecture. But complex geared machinery, that was the domain of the medieval and Renaissance periods, a full 1,000 years later. To many experts, the simplest explanation was that this was indeed a later astrolabe, a navigational device that had simply fallen into an older shipwreck, a chronological accident. This theory persisted not out of stubbornness, but from a genuine conceptual barrier. The mechanism's proposed sophistication seemed so utterly out of place that it was easier to believe in a cataloging error than a historical revolution. Throughout the early and mid-20th century, researchers would carefully clean the fragments, make detailed sketches, and debate their function. They could see there were gears, but the layers of hardened sea deposit and mineralized corrosion had fused the internal components into a single, unyielding mass. It was like trying to read a book that had been sealed in concrete. You knew there were pages inside, but every word was hidden. This period represents the mechanism's first and most fundamental layer of mystery. It was physically present, yet intellectually out of reach. The artifact was a locked door, and the classical world had apparently thrown away the key. The puzzle waited not for a better archaeologist, but for an entirely new way of seeing. The breakthrough would not come from the halls of a history museum, but from the cutting edge of modern physics, where a scientist would apply a tool designed to see into the heart of matter, to peer into the heart of antiquity. The key to unlocking the Antikythera mechanism arrived not from a historian's intuition, but from the penetrating gaze of modern physics. Decades after its discovery, the corroded mass remained stubbornly closed, its secrets guarded by layers of mineralized crust. Then, in the 1970s, a British physicist named Derek de Solla Price brought a revolutionary tool to the problem: X-ray imaging. For the first time, researchers could see through the outer shell without destroying the fragile artifact within. The initial radiographs were a revelation. They revealed a hidden cosmos of interlocking bronze gears, some with intricate triangular teeth arranged in complex trains. But the true breakthrough came with even more advanced techniques, like gamma radiography and later, three-dimensional X-ray tomography. These technologies acted like a superpower, allowing scientists to digitally peel back the corrosion layer by layer. They mapped the gears in 3 dimensions, traced the paths of long-lost axles, and even began to read inscriptions that had been invisible for 2,000 years. What emerged was not a simple device, but a breathtakingly intricate machine. It was a labyrinth of precision engineering, with dials nested within dials and gears that moved with a purpose far beyond mere decoration. Derek de Solla Price spent years analyzing these images, meticulously reconstructing the gear trains. In 1974, he published a landmark paper with a title that was a declaration in itself: Gears from the Greeks. His conclusion was bold and unequivocal. The Antikythera mechanism was a computer, not an electronic one, of course, but a mechanical computer designed to calculate the positions of the sun, the moon, and likely the planets. This was the definitive turning point. The imaging proved it was not an accident, not a later intrusion, but a deliberately engineered object of stunning complexity. For the first time, we had a clear map of its inner world, a blueprint of ancient genius. The mechanism was no longer a curious maybe, it was a confirmed marvel. Yet this scientific victory opened a far deeper historical mystery. If this was a computer, who built it, and what knowledge did it contain that was so vital it was worth encoding in bronze? With the internal map now revealed, we can finally step inside this ancient mind and understand what it was built to do. Picture, if you will, a bronze face about the size of a large dinner plate. This was the main display, the mechanism's front dial. Ringing its edge were two scales, one showing the 12 signs of the Greek zodiac, and the other the 365 days of the Egyptian calendar, a practical solar year. Here, two exquisite pointers, likely crafted as tiny spheres, traced their endless dance, one for the sun and one for the moon. By simply turning a hand crank on the side, an educated user could align these pointers to any date in the past or future and read off the precise positions of these celestial bodies against the stars. It was a dynamic, mechanical almanac, but the true genius was hidden on the back. The upper back dial is a masterpiece of compressed information, a spiral groove coiled into 5 distinct turns. This was the engine for tracking time in grand cycles. Its pointer would complete one slow revolution every 19 years, modeling what is called the Metonic cycle. This is the period after which the phases of the moon repeat on the same calendar dates. This dial didn't just tell time, it synchronized the lunar month with the solar year, a critical task for maintaining religious calendars, agricultural schedules, and civic life across the Greek world. Beneath it lies the lower back dial, another 4-turn spiral. This one served a more dramatic purpose, eclipse prediction. Its inscriptions named predicted months for both lunar and solar eclipses, turning celestial omens into a calculable and mechanical forecast. Perhaps most human of all is the tiny subsidiary dial nestled here, which tracked the 4-year cycle of the Panhellenic Games, the ancient world's great athletic festivals like the Olympics. This single feature connects the cosmic machine directly to the heartbeat of Greek culture, to the rhythms of celebration and human achievement. The magic that powered these displays was a symphony of interlocking bronze. At its heart was an assembly of over 30 precisely cut gears, some with teeth so fine they were just a millimeter across. Among them was a component so advanced it defies belief, a differential gear. This was not a simple gear that transfers motion, but a brilliant arrangement that allowed for the subtraction of one motion from another. Its purpose, to model the moon's subtle anomaly, the fact that our moon speeds up and slows down in its elliptical orbit. The mechanism didn't just show the moon's position, it replicated its variable speed with mechanical perfection. This single component represents a leap of abstract engineering thought that would not be seen again in any surviving artifact until the geared clocks of the 18th century, over 1,000 years later. This was not a toy or a speculative model. Every gear, every inscribed glyph was a physical expression of a profound and unified understanding, a vision of a cosmos that was mathematical, predictable, and beautifully mechanical. The mechanism's simulation of the moon's motion stands as its most breathtaking intellectual leap. Ancient Greek astronomers, through meticulous observation, had uncovered a subtle celestial secret. The moon does not orbit Earth at a constant speed in a perfect circle. Its path is elliptical, meaning it moves faster when closer to Earth and slower when farther away. This irregularity is called the first lunar anomaly, and tracking it was the holy grail of ancient astronomy. It was one thing to note this behavior in scrolls and tables, but the designer of the Antikythera Mechanism did something radically different. They sought to build it, to make a machine that didn't merely point to where the moon should be, but to physically enact how it moved. The solution they engineered is a masterpiece of lateral thinking. On one of the central gears, they placed not just simple teeth, but a clever pin and slot device. As this main gear turned at a constant rate, representing the moon's average motion, the pin engaged a slot on a secondary gear. This ingenious arrangement converted that steady rotation into a gentle, back-and-forth rocking motion, a sinusoidal variation. This rocking was then added to the main drive, speeding up and slowing down the final output pointer in a precise, repeating cycle. Think of it like a record player with a wobble intentionally built into the turntable, creating a rhythm within the rotation. That rhythm was the moon's heartbeat cast in bronze. This means that when you turned the hand crank, the little moon pointer on the front dial didn't just advance in steady ticks. It would subtly hurry forward, then ease back, then hurry again, mirroring the actual, loping dance of the real moon across the sky. This was more than calculation, it was mechanical mimicry. The designer had taken an abstract mathematical principle, a concept of variable motion, and translated it into a tangible, physical law within their device. The cosmos was no longer just observed, it was invited inside. The machine on a tabletop became a working model of the heavens themselves, a testament to a philosophy that saw the universe not as a chaotic realm of gods, but as a complex and beautiful system waiting to be understood and astonishingly rebuilt. This power to model the moon's subtle dance was not an academic exercise. It served a higher and more urgent purpose, one etched into the spiral dials on the mechanism's back. The machine could predict the most terrifying celestial events known to the ancient world, solar and lunar eclipses. In a time when the sudden darkening of the sun or the moon turning a deep, coppery red were seen as direct messages from the gods, often portending disaster for kings and empires, this ability was more than science. It was a form of profound social and political authority. The mechanism achieved this through an understanding of a long astronomical cycle called the Saros cycle. This is a period of approximately 18 years and 11 days, after which the sun, earth, and moon return to nearly the same relative geometry, and a similar eclipse will occur. It is a pattern written in the sky, but one requiring generations of observations to discern. The designer of this device did not just know of the Saros, they built a physical counter for it. The large lower back dial with its 4 elegant spiral turns was this counter. A pointer would creep along this spiral over those 18 years, and when it reached certain marked divisions, inscriptions around the dial would announce the warning. The glyphs were terse and powerful. They indicated the month and day of a predicted eclipse and even described its expected nature. Some inscriptions, deciphered by modern scholars, include words like blood red or darkening, directly referencing the eclipse's ominous appearance. Think of the immense psychological shift this represented. For the priest or the philosopher king who operated this device, the terrifying uncertainty of a divine omen was replaced by the quiet certainty of mechanics. By turning the crank, they could scroll forward through time and see the eclipse warnings appear, not as revelations from an oracle, but as the inevitable output of bronze gears following mathematical law. This transformed eclipse prediction from a rare priestly secret or a lucky guess by court astronomers into a repeatable, demonstrable calculation. It granted the user a form of foresight that would have seemed, to most contemporaries, indistinguishable from divinity itself. They held in their hands a tool that could seemingly negotiate with the heavens, turning cosmic fear into a scheduled event. This blending of cutting-edge astronomy with the deepest currents of religion and power shows us the mechanism was never just a calculator. It was an instrument of cultural influence, a quiet engine of state. But the mechanism's purpose is not locked solely within its moving parts. It is also written in plain sight, or at least in ancient Greek. Scattered across the surviving fragments, engraved in letters often just a millimeter high, are thousands of tiny characters. For decades they were invisible, hidden under crust and corrosion. Advanced imaging techniques have now revealed them not as decorative flourishes, but as a comprehensive technical document, the ancient world's most sophisticated user manual. This text transforms the device from a silent machine into a speaking artifact. It labels the dials, explaining their functions with a clarity that leaves little room for debate. One inscription, for instance, explicitly states the spiral divided into 235 sections, a direct reference to the Metonic cycle dial on the back. Another fragment mentions the little sphere that shines with the light of the sun, confirming the sun pointer. These are not poetic musings, they are precise, instructional labels. Beyond simple labels, the inscriptions serve as an astronomical glossary and data table. They list the names of constellations in the zodiac, they note the rising and setting times of certain stars, and they include numerical data for planetary cycles. This text was the reference material that made the machine operable, a built-in encyclopedia for the person turning the crank. The very existence of this manual tells us something profound about its intended user. This was not a device for the casual curious. The operator was expected to be technically literate, fluent in the language of astronomical cycles and mechanical notation. They were a scientist, a philosopher, or a highly trained priest, someone for whom terms like Saros and Metonic were part of a working vocabulary. The manual connects the cold, precise bronze directly to the living, reasoning mind of its creator. It is a bridge across 2 millennia, allowing us to overhear the designer explaining their own work, ensuring their complex creation would be understood and used as intended. In these minute, painstakingly engraved letters, we find the final, unequivocal confirmation of the mechanism's purpose, written by the very hands that conceived it. Who built this astonishing machine? Its bronze face bears no signature, no maker's mark to give credit. Yet within its very design, in the theories it physically enacts, we find what might be the ghost of a creator, a fingerprint left in mathematics rather than metal. The most compelling candidate is not an engineer but an astronomer, Hipparchus of Rhodes. Working in the 2nd century before the Common Era, Hipparchus was a titan of ancient science. He compiled the first known star catalogue, discovered the precession of the equinoxes, and developed a highly sophisticated model for the moon's irregular motion. That very same first lunar anomaly the mechanism so brilliantly replicates. The mathematical parameters used in the device's gearing to speed up and slow down the moon pointer align with extraordinary precision with the theories Hipparchus is known to have developed. It is as if someone took his complex lunar equations and translated them directly into a language of gears and pins. This is more than coincidence. It suggests the mechanism's designer was either Hipparchus himself, working with master craftsmen, or a later scholar who had access to and deeply understood his unpublished work. The trail of clues, however, does not end with theory alone. It leads to a specific place, the island of Rhodes, a vibrant crossroads of commerce, science, and technology in the Hellenistic world. Rhodes was famous for its advanced engineering, particularly in the creation of monumental devices and automata. And it was here that another figure enters the story, the philosopher Posidonius. A generation after Hipparchus, Posidonius ran one of the most influential schools on Rhodes. The Roman statesman Cicero, who studied there, writes of a specific device made by Posidonius. He describes a globe that could demonstrate the motions of the sun, moon, and planets with each turn, a representation of the cosmos in action. Cicero's account is not a vague myth, it is a first-hand report of a real object. While his description is of a celestial sphere rather than a geared calculator, it proves that the intellectual environment on Rhodes was actively engaged in building complex models of the heavens. So we have a powerful convergence. On Rhodes, we find the pinnacle of astronomical theory with Hipparchus. On Rhodes, we find a culture of advanced mechanical engineering. And on Rhodes, we have a direct historical record of a philosopher, Posidonius, constructing a cosmic simulation device. The shipwreck itself offers a final, tangible clue. Coins found in the wreckage have been identified as coming from Pergamon, a city with strong cultural ties to Rhodes, suggesting the vessel's route. While we may never know the name of the individual artisan who assembled the gears, the evidence paints a compelling portrait of its origin. The Antikythera Mechanism likely emerged from a workshop on Rhodes in the 1st or 2nd century before the Common Era, a physical testament to a golden age where the line between philosopher, astronomer, and engineer beautifully blurred. It stands as the ultimate expression of Hipparchus's celestial insights, rendered not in ink on papyrus but in moving, breathing bronze. To hold this machine was to hold a form of power. The Antikythera Mechanism was not merely a brilliant scientific instrument, it was a social tool, a device designed to bring order to the very fabric of ancient Greek life. Its primary function may have been astronomical calculation, but its true purpose was woven into the calendar, the harvest, the temple, and the stadium. Consider the farmer in a coastal city-state, his life governed by the seasons. The mechanism's metonic cycle, that 19-year spiral on the back, did more than track the moon. It synchronized the lunar months with the solar year. This was the key to maintaining an accurate calendar, telling communities precisely when to plant, when to expect the rains, and when to celebrate the festivals dedicated to Demeter, goddess of the harvest. It turned celestial cycles into practical, agricultural certainty. For the priests, the device offered a different kind of authority. The Eclipse prediction dial transformed celestial omens from terrifying mysteries into scheduled events. A priest who could publicly announce well in advance that the moon would turn a deep red on a specific night was not just an observer, he was an interpreter of divine will. This knowledge could be used to reinforce social order, to validate a ruler's mandate, or to prepare the populace for what they believed were messages from the gods, all while demonstrating that the temple held the keys to understanding the cosmos. The inclusion of the 4-year cycle of the Panhellenic Games, including the Olympics, is perhaps the most humanizing feature. It connected this bronze cosmos directly to the rhythm of Greek culture, to the truces between city-states, the gathering of athletes, and the shared identity of the Hellenic world. Turning the crank could tell you not only when the next eclipse would occur, but how many months remained until the next great games at Olympia. This machine, therefore, sat at a profound intersection. It was a scientific calculator that also served as a religious guide, a political instrument, and a cultural touchstone. Its owner, likely a wealthy patron, a royal court, or a major temple, did not just possess a marvel of engineering. They possessed a device that could organize time, interpret the heavens, and visibly demonstrate their intellectual and spiritual supremacy. The mechanism was a statement, proof that its holder could command not just armies or wealth, but the fundamental cycles of the universe itself. Yet this single, spectacular artifact presents us with a profound and unsettling paradox. If this technology was so advanced, why have we not found dozens or even hundreds of similar devices? Why does the Antikythera Mechanism stand alone in the archaeological record, a solitary beacon in what appears to be a vast technological darkness? This is the central mystery of its legacy, the question of a technological singularity that appeared and then vanished. Several theories attempt to explain this silence. The first is one of practicality and rarity. The mechanism was not a mass-produced tool. It was an exquisite prototype, a masterpiece requiring a team of the finest astronomers, mathematicians, and master bronze smiths working in concert. The cost in specialized labor and materials would have been astronomical, placing it firmly in the hands of only the wealthiest patrons or most prestigious institutions. Perhaps only a handful were ever made. A second, more sobering theory suggests the knowledge required to build it was held by a vanishingly small and elite circle. Think of it as a secret society of philosopher-engineers, their expertise passed down through a few apprentices in private workshops. When that fragile chain was broken by conflict, by shifting political winds, or simply by the passing of a single great mind without a successor, the entire technical tradition could have evaporated within a generation. The broader historical context offers another compelling answer. The mechanism was created in the vibrant, intellectually competitive world of the Hellenistic Greeks, a culture that celebrated pure inquiry and theoretical brilliance. But its shipwreck dates to the rise of the Roman Republic, a civilization famed for its monumental and practical engineering, aqueducts, roads, and siege engines. The Roman conquest may have fundamentally shifted priorities. A society building an empire valued applied science, infrastructure, and military technology over intricate models of cosmic theory. Funding and interest for such delicate philosophical instruments could have simply dried up. There is also the stark reality of material value. Bronze was a precious commodity, constantly melted down and recycled for coins, weapons, or statues. A broken or outdated mechanism, no matter how ingenious, would have been seen not as a treasure to preserve, but as a lump of valuable metal waiting to be repurposed. This single survivor may have only escaped the smelter's furnace by sinking to the bottom of the sea, so the mechanism represents a peak that was not sustained. It was a brilliant spark that, for a complex web of cultural, economic, and historical reasons, failed to ignite a wider industrial revolution. This very isolation is what makes it so precious and so haunting. It is a glimpse of a path ancient science could have taken but did not, a road not traveled. It forces us to confront the fragility of knowledge, the sobering truth that great understanding is not a guaranteed inheritance, but a flame that must be carefully tended, or it can be extinguished, leaving only a ghost in the gears for future generations to wonder at. The mechanism's final voyage was a journey into the heart of Roman ambition. By the 1st century before the Common Era, the ship carrying it was not a Greek vessel on a scientific mission, but a Roman merchant galley, a floating treasury of plunder. Its cargo tells a clear story: bronze and marble masterpieces, luxury glassware, coins, and jewelry, all gathered from the wealthy cities of the Eastern Mediterranean. This was not trade, it was systematic looting. The Romans, having conquered the Hellenistic kingdoms, were transporting the physical spoils of their victory back to Italy. The Antikythera Mechanism, packed carefully among statues of philosophers, was almost certainly part of this intellectual haul. It was destined for one of two places: either the triumphal parade of a conquering general, displayed as a trophy of a sophisticated culture now subdued, or the private collection of an immensely wealthy Roman aristocrat, a curiosity for a villa on the Bay of Naples. Its value was twofold. It was a marvel of craftsmanship, but more importantly, it was a symbol. It represented the pinnacle of Greek theoretical knowledge, now physically possessed by Rome. This context transforms our understanding of the artifact. It is not merely a Greek invention, it is a casualty of empire, a brilliant mind captured and sent across the sea. The ship never reached its destination. Around 60 years before the Common Era, likely caught in a sudden Mediterranean storm, it sank near the treacherous cliffs of Antikythera. The mechanism, along with every other treasure, plunged into the deep. The violent force of the wreck shattered its wooden case, scattering its bronze components. For 2,000 years, it lay encased in sediment, a time capsule sealed by catastrophe. There is a profound irony in this loss. The very act of Roman conquest that sought to claim this knowledge also condemned it to oblivion. The mechanism, a product of the vibrant, inquisitive Hellenistic world, literally sank under the weight of Roman imperial power. Yet that same oblivion is precisely what saved it. Had it reached Rome, it would have eventually been melted down for its bronze, or discarded when its intricate workings were no longer understood. The sea, which seemed to destroy it, became its perfect preserver. The cold, dark, oxygen-poor environment protected its fragile gears from the recycling furnaces and the erasing hands of time that consumed all its cousins on land. Its modern discovery was only possible because of its ancient loss, a forgotten prize from a sunken treasury waiting to rewrite history. The silent testimony of the mechanism's fragments was not enough. To truly believe this machine could work, we needed to hear its gears turn. This is where modern curiosity met ancient ingenuity, as researchers and engineers embarked on an extraordinary quest to rebuild the Antikythera Mechanism from scratch. The first to undertake this monumental task in the modern era was Michael Wright, a curator at London's Science Museum. In the 1990s and early 2000s, armed with Derek de Solla Price's research and his own meticulous study of the X-rays, Wright began constructing a physical replica. His work was an act of deep empathy with the original makers. He used only tools and materials that would have been available in the ancient world, like hand-cut bronze gears and wooden pegs. When he finally turned the crank on his completed model and watched the pointers for the sun and moon begin their synchronized dance across the zodiac dial, it was a moment of profound vindication. The theory was no longer just lines on a page, it was a functioning, tangible object. Wright's replica proved beyond any remaining doubt that the design was not just a theoretical diagram, but a fully engineered, mechanically sound device. It could be built and it would work. His hands-on approach revealed subtle insights no scan could provide, like the gentle resistance of the gears, the importance of precise bearing surfaces, and the satisfying click of the pointers moving from one day to the next. He had not just studied the mechanism, he had conversed with it, learning its language through the act of recreation. This work was dramatically accelerated and expanded by an international team known as the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project. Starting in 2005, they employed the most advanced technology available, three-dimensional X-ray tomography from a giant medical scanner, and polynomial texture mapping, a form of high-resolution surface imaging. These tools generated stunningly detailed digital models, allowing them to see inside the fragments with unprecedented clarity. They discovered new, hidden inscriptions and resolved debates about the arrangement of critical gears. From this digital blueprint, they could then create both virtual simulations and precise physical replicas using modern computer-controlled machining and even three-dimensional printing. These models allowed for endless experimentation. Scholars could test different gear arrangements virtually, see how adding a hypothetical lost gear would affect the calculations, and animate the entire front and back dials in real time. We can now watch a digital reconstruction of the mechanism predict an eclipse that occurred in 2008, a forecast programmed into bronze over 2 millennia ago. This cycle of discovery, from fragment to scan, from scan to model, and from model back to new discovery, creates a living dialogue with the past. Each new reconstruction refines our understanding, suggesting where missing pieces might have been, or how certain ambiguous inscriptions should be interpreted. The work of these modern makers does more than prove a point, it completes a circle. By building the device, they step into the workshop of its ancient creators, facing the same engineering challenges and experiencing the same triumphant moment when the cosmos clicks into motion at the turn of a handle. It transforms the mechanism from a silent, corroded relic into a speaking, ticking teacher, its lessons delivered not through words, but through the beautiful, meshing motion of ideas made metal. The latest chapter in this 2,000-year-old story is being written not with trowels and brushes, but with particle beams and algorithms. While physical reconstructions proved the mechanism could work, a new wave of digital archaeology is revealing what it was truly meant to be. The key technology is called microfocus X-ray computed tomography, a process similar to a medical CT scan, but with a beam fine enough to see details smaller than a human hair. Teams like the International Antikythera Mechanism Research Project have used this tool to perform a kind of virtual autopsy on the fragments, peeling back the layers of corrosion with digital precision. For the first time, they could see the true shape of every surviving gear tooth, trace the paths of axles worn down to ghosts, and read inscriptions that had been completely invisible, buried inside the calcified mass. This was not just an improvement in clarity, it was a revelation. The scans acted like a time machine, restoring the object to a state closer to its original form than anyone had seen since it sank. One of the most significant discoveries from this digital dive was the confirmation of a long-debated feature, a complex planetary display on the main front dial. Earlier research had hinted at it, but the tomography provided undeniable evidence. The scans revealed fittings and mounting points for additional pointers, and critically, they uncovered inscriptions that named the 5 known planets: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These were not just labels, they were part of a detailed, technical manual engraved onto the plates themselves, describing the planets' periods and their retrograde motions, the occasional backwards loops they make in the sky. This means the original mechanism was not merely a sun and moon calculator, it was a comprehensive orrery, a miniature, moving model of the entire known cosmos. The front face would have been a breathtaking spectacle with at least 7 pointers, one for each wandering celestial body, all moving at their different, mathematically determined speeds against a backdrop of the fixed stars. This finding fundamentally expands our understanding of its ambition. It was not just a tool for prediction, it was a philosophical statement, a physical embodiment of the Greek concept of a harmonious, clockwork universe. Every turn of the crank would have set this entire bronze cosmos into motion, a demonstration of cosmic order made manifest on a tabletop. This ongoing work shows the mechanism is a gift that keeps on giving. Each leap in our own technology, from X-rays to 3-dimensional modeling, offers a fresh lens through which to examine this ancient marvel. The digital models built from this data are not final answers, but new starting points for exploration. Scholars can now run simulations, testing how different gear arrangements would affect the planetary motions, or animate the device to see an eclipse prediction unfold across its dials in real time. With each virtual iteration, we come closer to hearing the full story this machine has been waiting 2 millennia to tell. The machine on your table is a physical proof of a forgotten library. Every gear, every inscribed glyph on the Antikythera Mechanism represents a chapter in a much larger, now vanished book of knowledge. This device did not spring fully formed from a single genius mind. It is the product of a vast and sophisticated intellectual ecosystem, one that we have only glimpsed through the theoretical texts that survived. To build it required mastery across multiple, highly specialized fields. First, the astronomy, the deep understanding of celestial cycles like the Saros and Metonic periods, data that would have filled scrolls with observations collected over centuries. Then, the complex spherical geometry and mathematics needed to translate those cycles into precise gear ratios, the kind of advanced calculations seen in the work of figures like Hipparchus. Next came the material science, the metallurgy to create a specific bronze alloy that was durable yet workable, and the chemistry for the inks and paints used on its dials. Finally, the precision engineering, the craft of designing and cutting gears with teeth a millimeter wide, of creating pin and slot mechanisms for variable motion, of building a compact frame with perfectly aligned axles. This convergence of expertise implies an infrastructure we can no longer see. It suggests dedicated workshops with master craftsmen, apprentices learning intricate techniques, and a thriving trade in specialized tools. It points to the existence of technical manuals, design schematics, and catalogs of astronomical data that were studied, copied, and improved upon over generations. The mechanism is a material echo of all that lost paperwork. When we read the surviving texts of a great thinker like Archimedes, describing mechanical principles and mathematical proofs, we are seeing the published theory. The Antikythera Mechanism is the working prototype, the practical application of that very same school of thought. It forces a humbling realization. the written works that form the foundation of our understanding of ancient science are merely the tip of a colossal iceberg. The vast submerged body, the world of hands-on engineering, experimental models, and complex instrumentation, has almost entirely melted away from history. This single survivor is our only direct evidence that this submerged world existed at all. It testifies to a Hellenistic culture where abstract theory and high craftsmanship were in constant, brilliant dialogue, building things we never knew they could. Archimedes of Syracuse was already a legend by the time the Antikythera gears were first cast. He died over a century before its likely creation, during the Roman sack of Syracuse in 212 before the Common Era. Yet his name haunts the story of the mechanism, a ghost in the historical record whose work may be the very key to its existence. Ancient writers, not given to easy praise, described his mechanical creations with a sense of awe. They tell us he built celestial spheres, intricate models that showed the motions of the sun, moon, and planets. These were not static sculptures but working devices. The Roman orator Cicero, writing a century and a half later, records a powerful detail. He says 2 of these spheres were taken as prized war trophies to Rome, where one was displayed in the Temple of Virtue. Generations of Romans would go to see this marvel, a Greek machine that demonstrated the revolutions of the heavens with a simple turn of a handle. For a long time, modern scholars read these accounts with polite skepticism. They were beautiful stories, perhaps, but likely exaggerated. The descriptions sounded too advanced, too perfect. Without a single surviving example, Archimedes' spheres remained in the realm of myth, a testament to his genius but not to tangible history. The Antikythera mechanism changes that equation entirely. It is the missing physical evidence. Here, at last, is a device that matches the ancient descriptions in complexity and purpose. It proves that the technology to build such a cosmic model not only existed, but had reached a breathtaking level of refinement. This connection is not merely circumstantial. The island of Rhodes, the most likely birthplace of the Antikythera device, had deep intellectual ties to Syracuse. Archimedes corresponded with scholars there, and his groundbreaking works on mathematics and mechanics were studied and celebrated across the Hellenistic world. It is entirely plausible, even likely, that the designers of the Antikythera mechanism were working within a technical tradition that Archimedes himself helped to found. They were his intellectual heirs. Think of it as a lineage of genius. Archimedes establishes the principles and builds the first legendary prototypes. His ideas and designs, perhaps passed down through scrolls and apprentices, inspired generations of craftsmen and astronomers in centers like Rhodes. Over decades, they refine the designs, add more functions, incorporate new astronomical data, and miniaturize the components. The Antikythera mechanism, then, is not an inexplicable anomaly. It is the culmination of that century-long tradition, the most advanced model to ever come out of that workshop. It bridges the immense gap between legend and artifact. Suddenly, Cicero's account of Romans marveling at a moving sphere in a temple is no longer a fanciful tale, but a report of a real technological spectacle. The mechanism allows us to see, with our own eyes, the kind of object that so impressed the ancient world. It transforms Archimedes from a mythical figure of superhuman intellect into a pioneering engineer whose ideas bore tangible, magnificent fruit. In its corroded bronze, we find the echo of a lost sphere and the proof that the greatest legends are sometimes waiting at the bottom of the sea. This 1,500-year silence is the mechanism's most deafening statement. To understand its true isolation, we must place it beside the brilliant devices that came after, the astrolabes of the medieval Islamic world and later Europe. These instruments are breathtaking achievements of science and art, intricate star maps etched onto brass plates. An astrolabe is a handheld computer of its own, allowing a user to tell time, calculate prayer times, or find the direction to Mecca by aligning its moving parts with the observed stars. It is a masterpiece of analog calculation, a tool for solving problems based on the visible sky. Yet its operation is fundamentally static. It models the cosmos as a two-dimensional projection, a beautiful chart to be consulted. The Antikythera mechanism operates on an entirely different principle. It is not a reference chart, it is a dynamic simulator. When you turn its crank, you are not aligning it with the present sky. You are winding up the cosmos itself and setting it in motion to reveal the future. Its complex internal gear trains physically perform the calculations, predicting celestial positions and events like eclipses automatically. This distinction is the chasm between a brilliant calculator and a mechanical mind. That chasm of time is staggering. The geared, predictive technology seen in the Antikythera finds no equal in the archaeological or historical record until the great astronomical clocks of the 14th century in Europe, like the one built by Giovanni da Dondi. These monumental public clocks featured elaborate gear trains to display the motions of the sun, moon, and planets. They were, in essence, the spiritual and technological successors to that ancient Greek device. But they appeared over 1.5 millennia later. For 1,500 years, the specific engineering philosophy that birthed the Antikythera, the drive to build a working, predictive model of the universe, appears to have vanished from the Earth. Knowledge of the heavens certainly persisted and grew, meticulously recorded by scholars in Baghdad, Cordoba, and Constantinople. The mathematics and observational data improved. But the art of translating that abstract knowledge into a compact, geared simulation of making bronze think through celestial cycles was a lost language. This gap tells us that technological progress is not a simple upward slope. A peak can be reached and then forgotten, its path erased by the tides of history. The medieval astrolabe represents a different, parallel branch of innovation, one focused on portable observation and calculation. It is a testament to continuous scientific inquiry. The Antikythera mechanism, alone in its era, represents a road not taken, a spark of a mechanical revolution that flickered out, leaving the world to wait more than 1,000 years to see its light again. The machine's true power lies not in what it calculates, but in what it implies. By translating the cosmos into a system of interlocking bronze gears, the Antikythera mechanism presents a radical philosophical argument, one that was revolutionary for its time. It embodies the idea of a clockwork universe, a cosmos governed by predictable mechanical laws, over 1,000 years before Isaac Newton would formalize such principles with gravity and motion. This was not a new idea in Greek thought, but it had never been made so tangible. Philosophers like Democritus, centuries earlier, had proposed a universe built from indivisible atoms moving through void, a materialist view where events unfolded from cause and effect, not divine whim. Another school, the Stoics, saw the universe as a single, rational, living entity, a concept called the logos, where everything was interconnected in an orderly web. The mechanism gives these abstract theories a physical, turning, clicking form. It is philosophy cast in metal. When you turn the crank and watch the eclipse pointer glide toward its predicted mark, you are witnessing the principle of cosmic order in action. The machine does not pray to the gods for an omen. It calculates the omen's arrival based on a mathematical rule embedded in its gears. This represents a profound shift in perspective. In a world where storms, plagues, and eclipses were commonly seen as direct interventions from Olympus, this device offered a different narrative. It suggested that the heavens operated with a regularity that could be understood, measured, and even reproduced on a tabletop. It did not necessarily deny the gods, but it placed them at a remove, as perhaps the original architects of a system that now ran on its own exquisite, knowable logic. The mechanism, therefore, was more than a tool for priests, it was a testament for philosophers. It served as a powerful demonstration model for teaching a specific worldview. A student could see the theory of celestial spheres or lunar anomalies not as a dry passage in a scroll, but as a dynamic, engaging performance. The machine made the abstract concrete, turning lofty speculation into a hands-on experience. This blending of high technology with fundamental belief shows us that the device was never neutral. It was an instrument of persuasion, quietly arguing for a universe of reason over a universe of chaos. In its flawless, predictable motion, we see the ancient desire to find not just patterns in the stars, but a deep, underlying structure to reality itself, a harmony that human ingenuity could mirror and hold in its hands. But such a cosmic vision could not be built from ideas alone. It demanded a foundation of fire, metal, and immense practical skill. The mechanism's true birthplace was not a philosopher's study, but a smoky, bustling workshop, ringing with the sound of hammers and the hiss of molten bronze. Its very material tells a story of advanced industry. The alloy used was not common bronze, but a carefully formulated mix of copper and tin, designed to be strong yet workable, resistant to corrosion yet capable of holding a razor-sharp edge on gear teeth barely a millimeter wide. This was metallurgy as a precise science. To shape this material required tools of remarkable sophistication for the era. We must picture master craftsmen using bow-driven lathes to turn gear blanks to perfect roundness, hand drills with iron bits to bore precise axle holes, and an array of hardened steel files and chisels to cut each triangular tooth by hand, likely guided by a brass template to ensure absolute consistency across dozens of gears. The engraving of the thousands of tiny Greek letters on the plates represents another pinnacle of artisan skill, a steady hand inscribing a technical manual directly onto the machine itself. This level of work implies a deep, specialized division of labor. One workshop would smelt and alloy the bronze ingots, another would cast the rough plates and gear blanks. The finest master metalworkers would then undertake the precision cutting and assembly, while a separate class of engravers, literate in technical terms, would inscribe the dials and instructions. This was not a single inventor toiling in isolation. It was a supply chain of expertise. The existence of such a network speaks volumes about the society that created it. Producing an object of such complexity with no direct military or obvious economic utility required a civilization with significant surplus wealth. It needed patrons, whether a royal court, a wealthy temple, or a scholarly institution, who were willing to invest vast resources into a demonstration of pure knowledge. The mechanism, therefore, is as much an economic artifact as a scientific one. It is proof of a culture that valued abstract understanding enough to marshal its finest material and human capital to give that understanding a physical, turning form. The genius of its design is mirrored by the genius of the craft that made it possible, a symphony of hands and minds aligning to build a working model of the heavens. Its intricate design whispers a tantalizing question: who was meant to turn its handle? The Antikythera Mechanism was not a public monument, but a personal instrument, and the identity of its user is a final, intimate layer of its mystery. This was no simple tool for a common sailor or farmer. The depth of astronomical knowledge required to interpret its dials, and the manual inscribed upon it, point to an operator of significant learning. One compelling candidate is a teacher in a philosophical school, perhaps like the one run by Posidonius on Rhodes. For such a scholar, the device would have been the ultimate teaching aid. Imagine a lecture on celestial harmony, where instead of just describing the moon's anomaly, the teacher could crank the mechanism and show the pointer subtly speeding up and slowing down, making the abstract theory a visible, mechanical truth. It would transform a lesson into a demonstration, proving the order of the cosmos with every turn. Yet its function as a grand orrery also fits another profile, the wealthy patron. In the competitive world of Hellenistic elites, owning such a marvel was a profound statement. Displaying it to guests was not just entertainment, it was a performance of erudition and power. The host was saying, "I do not merely study the cosmos, I command a miniature version of it in my home." It was the ultimate conversation piece, blending art, science, and conspicuous intellectual consumption. Then there is the figure of the astrologer priest. The ability to predict eclipses and planetary positions with mechanical certainty would have been an unparalleled source of authority. In a society where celestial events guided major decisions, the person who operated this device held the keys to interpreting divine will. They could craft horoscopes with a precision others could only guess at, grounding their spiritual counsel in the undeniable logic of bronze gears. And we cannot overlook the practical administrator, the calendar keeper for a major city or temple. The mechanism's precise tracking of the Metonic cycle and the Panhellenic games made it an ideal tool for managing the complex civic and religious calendar. This user would have been a bureaucrat of time, ensuring festivals were correctly scheduled, agricultural cycles were announced, and the great games were properly anticipated, all from this one compact device. The truth likely encompasses all these roles. Its complexity demanded a specialist, but its output served the entire community. The teacher, the patron, the priest, and the clerk all represent facets of the same Hellenistic world, a society that sought to bring the vast, chaotic universe into a realm of human understanding and control. To hold its crank was to stand at the intersection of knowledge, power, faith, and daily life, a single individual mediating between the turning of the gears and the turning of the world. That single surviving mechanism forces a thrilling question upon us. If one was saved purely by the accident of a shipwreck, could others still be waiting, hidden in the silent archives of history? The logic is compelling. This was not a one-of-a-kind miracle, but a product of a sophisticated technical tradition. Where there is one masterpiece, there were almost certainly prototypes, simpler models, and later copies. They could be anywhere, perhaps resting in other undiscovered shipwrecks, still packed in the hold of a Roman galley, maybe buried within the ruins of a great library or a philosopher's villa, collapsed into an indistinguishable lump of corrosion. There is even the tantalizing possibility that fragments of other mechanisms already sit in museum storage rooms around the Mediterranean, mislabeled as unidentifiable bronze objects or curious pieces of scrap. This is not mere speculation. Recent archaeology has begun to provide clues. From later Roman shipwrecks, researchers have recovered simpler geared devices, like a small, hand-powered bronze calendar from the 1st century before the Common Era. These finds, while less complex, prove that the knowledge of precision gearing for calculating time was more widespread than we ever imagined. They are the echoes of a technology that was once understood and used. This changes the entire landscape of classical archaeology. Every excavator now knows what to look for, not a beautiful statue, but an unassuming, corroded mass that might reveal the faint, telltale outline of a gear tooth under X-ray. Every lump of mineralized bronze from an ancient context is a potential cipher. This informed search turns every dig into a moment of potential revolution. The next discovery might not be in the deep sea, but in a trench in Athens or a storeroom in Rome. And when it happens, it could double our understanding of ancient engineering overnight. One new mechanism could confirm the planetary display, reveal a lost maker's name, or show an entirely different application of the technology we have not yet dreamed of. The Antikythera is no longer just a solitary wonder. It is a guide, a blueprint for finding its lost siblings. It tells us to look closer, to question the mundane fragment, because the next corroded lump could be another key to a forgotten world of thinking metal. For decades after its rediscovery, the mechanism remained a specialist's puzzle, confined to academic journals and museum backrooms. Its transformation into a global icon began with those first published X-rays, images that revealed the ghostly, intricate gears within the corroded mass. This visual evidence was irresistible, a machine from antiquity looking like something from the workshop of Leonardo da Vinci, but 2,000 years older. That stark contrast between its sophistication and its age was the spark. Soon, its image began to appear in popular science magazines, featured not in dry articles but in spreads that framed it as the world's first computer, a phrase that instantly connected it to our modern world. Major documentary series from networks around the globe dedicated episodes to unraveling its secrets, using cutting-edge CGI to bring its bronze gears to life, spinning in pristine digital reconstructions. The story had everything: a dramatic shipwreck discovery, a profound historical mystery, and a tangible object that seemed to defy the timeline of progress. It became a staple plot device in fiction, appearing in novels and television shows as the ultimate MacGuffin, a relic of lost advanced knowledge that could rewrite history. This widespread fascination did more than just make it famous. It created a powerful feedback loop. Public curiosity generated viewer interest, which in turn justified funding for the next round of high-tech investigations. The international research projects that used million-dollar CT scanners were powered, in part, by the public's desire to know more. Artists began creating stunning sculptures and installations inspired by its form. Engineers built working replicas to test its limits, and writers used it as a metaphor for the fragility of human knowledge. The Antikythera Mechanism ceased to be just an archaeological find. It became a cultural symbol, a shorthand for a haunting question: what else did the ancients know that we have forgotten? Its journey from a drawer in Athens to the global stage proves a vital truth: that the most potent history is not just written in books, but held in the hand, a story of ingenuity waiting in the silence, ready to capture the imagination of the world and remind us that our past is far more surprising than we ever assumed. The precise arrangement of its gears is still a matter of intense scholarly debate. Even with our most advanced three-dimensional scans, researchers disagree on the exact number of original components, how they were linked, and whether the planetary display was as complete as some models suggest. Was there a complex train of gears dedicated to each of the 5 known planets, or did the machine use clever shortcuts? Disagreements extend to its calibration, with different proposed start dates for its cycles, each one subtly shifting the historical context of its creation. And then there is the enduring question of its ultimate purpose. Was it purely a scientific instrument for modeling cosmic theory? Or did its eclipse predictions and planetary positions serve a deeper astrological function, crafting precise horoscopes for royalty? Some scholars propose even more radical ideas: that it could have been used for navigational calculations or as a unique teaching device for spherical geometry. These controversies are not signs of confusion, but the vibrant heartbeat of a living field. They prove the mechanism is far from a solved puzzle. Each new fragment of text revealed by a scan, each novel interpretation of a gear ratio, has the power to overturn a decade of consensus. This constant state of reevaluation is what keeps the artifact at the cutting edge of archaeological science. It ensures that this 2,000-year-old device remains one of the most dynamic and debated subjects in modern research, a conversation between past and present that is still very much alive. The Antikythera Mechanism is a teacher, and its first lesson is a profound dose of humility. For generations, we have told a simple story of human progress, a steady upward climb from primitive tools to the silicon chips of today. This device shatters that comforting narrative. It stands as a brilliant peak in a distant valley of time, proving that advanced knowledge can be achieved, lost, and then rediscovered centuries or even millennia later. Technological history is not a straight line, but a landscape with forgotten mountains. This realization forces us to question what other summits of understanding might lie hidden in the shadows of our past, or what peaks we ourselves might one day forget. The mechanism whispers that progress is fragile, and that the preservation of knowledge is as vital as its discovery. Its very existence is a cautionary tale against arrogance, a reminder that our modern world does not hold a monopoly on genius. This single artifact also demonstrates the essential power of collaboration. No one person and no single academic field could have unlocked its secrets alone. It required a symphony of expertise. Classical historians provided the context of the Hellenistic world. Astronomers decoded the celestial cycles it modeled. Physicists and imaging specialists peered inside with X-rays and tomography. Engineers then took those blueprints and rebuilt its gears, testing the theories with their hands. This decades-long conversation between disciplines is a perfect model for how true discovery happens at the intersections. The mechanism did not just calculate astronomical cycles, it orchestrated a cycle of modern inquiry, proving that the biggest puzzles are solved not by isolated experts, but by diverse minds working together toward a common mystery. It is a testament to the fact that the universe does not divide itself into academic departments, and neither should we. For anyone learning the scientific method, the mechanism offers a masterclass in practice. The process of understanding it mirrors the core steps of science itself. It began with observation, the careful study of the corroded fragments. This led to a hypothesis, the bold idea that it was an ancient computer. That hypothesis was then tested, not in a traditional lab, but through the rigorous experiment of reconstruction, building physical and digital models to see if the proposed gear trains would actually work. Each new scan provided more data, leading to refined hypotheses which were tested again. This iterative loop of observation, theory, and experimentation is the very engine of science, beautifully demonstrated through the study of a 2,000-year-old object. It shows that science is not just a collection of facts, but a living process of curiosity, guesswork, and verification, a process as applicable to ancient bronze as to modern physics. Perhaps its most immediate gift is to make the ancient world feel astonishingly alive. Too often, we view classical antiquity as a static gallery of marble statues and crumbling columns, a world of togas and temples frozen in time. The Antikythera Mechanism changes that. It whirs, it turns, it calculates. It was built by people who argued over gear ratios, who made mistakes and corrections, who sought not just to philosophize about the cosmos, but to hold its workings in their hands. This device introduces us to the ancient engineer, the thoughtful technician, the curious student. It collapses the distance between then and now, revealing a society that was dynamic, pragmatic, and fiercely intelligent. Suddenly, the past is not a foreign country, but a workshop next door, where people just like us were solving breathtakingly complex problems with the tools they had. In doing so, it becomes a powerful tool for dismantling stereotypes. It challenges the lazy notion that ancient people were somehow less capable, or that their technology was uniformly simple. Here is a device that demands we replace those clichés with respect and wonder. For a student today, learning about this machine can be a transformative moment, a spark that ignites a lifelong passion for history, engineering, or astronomy. It proves that the stories of the past are not just about kings and battles, but about innovation and intellect. The Antikythera Mechanism, therefore, is more than a relic, it is an invitation. It asks us to look at history not as a closed book, but as an open puzzle, encouraging future generations to approach the past with the same curious, open, and humble minds that finally brought its silent gears to speak. That silent, bronze rebuttal echoes far beyond its own intricate gears. The Antikythera Mechanism is more than an artifact. It is a question cast in metal, a ghost from a lost age of computation that haunts our understanding of history itself. Its journey from a storm-tossed shipwreck to the glowing screens of modern tomography is a testament to a single, unbroken thread: human curiosity. For 2,000 years, the sea held its secret. For over a century, we have strained to listen, each generation applying its newest tools to hear the whispers of the past a little more clearly. This story is not just about decoding an ancient device, it is about the timeless desire to decode the universe. The mechanism's true power lies in what it forces us to confront. It is a single, surviving data point in a vast, empty graph, a whisper of a technological path that classical civilization began to walk but did not continue. It challenges us to wonder with a thrilling and humbling urgency about the landscape of lost knowledge. What other libraries of thought, what other marvels of engineering vanished without a trace, leaving no shipwreck to preserve them? Every gear we map, every inscription we decipher, is a reminder that history is not merely what was written down, but what was built, used, and ultimately lost. As we continue to decode its secrets with ever more sophisticated tools, we are engaged in a profound dialogue. We are not just recovering Greek astronomy, we are rediscovering a fundamental part of our own intellectual heritage: the relentless drive to model the world, to find patterns in the chaos, and to build machines that mirror the beautiful complexity we perceive. This ancient computer, in the end, reflects a very modern truth. Our greatest creations are always, in some way, an attempt to build a working model of our own wonder. If this journey through time has captivated you, the exploration is just beginning. You can delve deeper by exploring the links in the description for incredible reconstructions and research papers. And we would love to hear your thoughts. What aspect of this ancient wonder resonates most with you? Share your reflections in the comments below.